Welcome to Mallett and Michelle on Dripping Springs, hosted by me, Michelle Lewis, and Steve Mallett.
Well, hey, Michelle, how you feeling?
Woo, woo.
It's been a day or two, hasn't it?
Woo, I tell you what, boy, I have to give shout out to the Hayes County emergency team that came to my house on Monday evening because of a kidney stone.
Oh, my gosh.
I was naked and afraid.
Did you just say, give me the drugs? Just pump me full of the drugs. Make it stop.
It was a daze. It was a total daze.
Yeah.
I didn't know where. I mean, I knew where the pain was coming from, but it was hitting me from all sides and all angles, and all of my senses were involved. And Todd was trying to take me to the emergency room, and I said, "Don't touch me."
Oh,
and
yeah. Holly's had him a number of times, and my understanding, it is one of the most painful things you can experience.
It was very, very painful. Is not even a big enough word to describe what was going on.
It scares me. I hope I never get one of those. But now you're on those KSP tabs, so hopefully that will relieve you from some of the.
I can only
effects.
take a half of one though, because they're very, very salty for me, and I'm very, very much a texture person, and if I don't like the way something.
But Holly's been on them, I think, 6 or 7, maybe longer years, and she's passed a couple small ones, but she hasn't had any big ones because she's had to have those lithotripsy.
I've had that before too.
Those are hard on you.
Very, very hard. My father had them. My uncle gets them. So they're genetic, and probably because of, I need to go see my rheumatologist. Probably my lupus is, I'm in a flare. But it's funny because you and I, Monday, we went to 2 homes and we were out. I think I got too hot.
Yeah.
But I was passing. But it hit me out of nowhere. Yeah. So Tuesday we had to postpone our podcast a little bit.
So our guest today is Mark Sewell, that owns Hill Country Ranch Pizzeria and the Hill Country Ranch Sweet Shop and a couple of other things. The
Driftwood Bistro.
Driftwood Bistro. So he's going to come in here and tell us all about that, and I'm excited to hear about that. And I'm hoping he brings us some treats.
Ooh, me too, because I like yummies.
Yeah. I was on vacation and I was thinking about topics we could talk about, and I just wanted to spend a couple minutes on this. One of the talents you have is an amazing ability to talk to strangers, just randomly start a conversation with strangers. And I don't think the majority of the people that we know and the majority of people in this country have that talent. And so I wanted to sort of interview you about how do you do that? Tell me. So we were standing in line at Panda Express when they opened, and Jesse James was standing behind you in line, and I was sort of like, "Oh, it's Jesse James." And Cedric and I were like making eyes at each other, like, "Hey, that's Jesse James." And you turned around and said, "Hey, how are you doing?" And you just started talking to him. And I was like, "Man, I wish I could do that. How do you do it?"
Todd says I can talk to a tree.
You could, and the tree would talk back in your case.
I think, it's funny, we're going to have Mark on today, but I waited tables when I was younger, and I think it really helped me able to, I don't know, it's kind of hard. I don't really know a stranger.
There's got to be something else, because I worked 20-something years in retail and sales, and I can have a good conversation with somebody if I'm introduced to them, but I have a hard time just talking to a total stranger.
I act like myself half the time. I mean, I say that I'm the same person in front of your face as I am behind your back. So I'm kind of consistent in that sense. But
I wonder if people pick up on that and they know that you're not threatening or intimidating in any way.
Well, I get bored too. So if I'm in line in HEB and I see somebody has something like, "Oh, hey, have you had that before? Is that good?" I just always I always try to find the common ground of something, and I pick up on that.
People like me that aren't good at that will say, "Sure is hot out there, huh?" You turn to the weather, the easy stuff, but you never do that.
Well, what's funny is that, so I'm very sociable. I'm very talkable and
talkable.
Talkable.
Oh, there you go. She made up a word.
Talkative. But Tuesday, when I was at the doctor and I was not feeling it, Todd was next to me, and there was an older guy across from us, and the guy asked Todd, "Hey, you play tennis?" And Todd's like, "No, I don't play tennis." And they go into this long conversation, and I'm like, "Shut up." Because I was like, "Shut up." And I'm under my breath, "Shut oh. And he's like, oh, she wants me to stop talking. I'm like, shut up. But I just, I think I'm funny. I'm probably not funny, but I introduce myself or I give someone a compliment. If I see somebody that has a pretty dress on or a nice shirt, or I love to give compliments.
Yeah. So
but
that
I'm
was
genuine.
actually one of the things I was going to say. That part has to be easier for a woman than a man, because if I'm in HEB and I see a woman that's dressed real nicely and I go, "Ooh, I love your dress," I'm going to get in trouble. Where you can do it.
I've had
or vice versa. If it's a man and you go, "Man, I love your suit."
Yeah.
I could get in trouble for that.
Yeah, it's probably easier for me in that sense. I mean, I have had people come up to me. It's because my hair is long, obviously. And, but people say the strangest things about my hair.
Can I touch your hair?
Yes. I've had women literally come up and put it's like I equate it to being pregnant. When you're pregnant,
And somebody comes up and touches
your belly.
Ooh,
Yes.
Yeah.
So if it's a friend, I will, can I touch your belly? And then I'm like, oh, I want to touch your belly.
Sure.
But I've had women put their hands in my hair and say, is that real? Is your hair real?
Oh my gosh.
So yes, it creeps me out a little bit.
I had a guy at HEB come up and touch my bald spot and go, "Is that real?"
Did he really?
No,
I was
no,
like, that's like
no.
really weird. No, you know what though? I think I don't really know a stranger.
I actually wrote that down. Do you know any strangers? You can just talk to anybody. Did you ever have times though when you're out and about and you go, "I don't really want to talk to anybody. I just want to keep to myself"?
Yes. Well, that was Tuesday.
Well,
I didn't feel
when
good.
You're not at a time when you're not feeling well. Like, do you sometimes go like, "I just want to run an HEB and I don't want to talk to a whole bunch of people"?
I mean, I don't know. I don't really think of it that way. I feel like sometimes opportunities just present themselves. And I always find myself in situations like my kids were like at church. They would say, "Mom, give me the keys," because they would know.
They would know you're going to spend an hour talking to people.
Leaving
then,
church.
I guess that is, you really enjoy that. It's not, so for a lot of us, having a long drawn out conversation in the HEB is a little bit of a chore. For you, it's almost like you're working out. For me, you enjoy it, so it's not a chore for
I
you.
do. I think also, like, if I see other people in conversations and I wanted to say hi to them and I didn't, I'll just walk by and I'll tap them on the arm and I'll say, "Just want to say hi," and I'll just walk by, because I don't want people to feel like they're ignored or like I ignored them, because I don't like to feel like I'm being ignored. So
Do you
I don't
ever
know.
have any social situations that you're in that you hate? And I'll give you an example for me. I don't like walking into a room where I don't know a single person.
I love that.
Do you really?
I do. I love it. Okay, there's a whole concept. I can't remember what the term is, but the concept is you go into the room and you look at the ceiling, right? And it's like the ceiling is you own the ceiling.
Wow.
You're walking in and you look at the ceiling, and so you're not walking into a group of people, right?
Okay.
So you're walking into just a room, and I will go seek out the person that is sitting by themselves, not talking to somebody.
See, that's funny, because I actually took a test on this about 10 years ago, and it was an aha moment for me. I walk into a room. If there's 100 people in there, I stand there and look for the one person I know, even if I only know them a little bit. And that's where I make my entry. I make a beeline for them. Whoever they're talking to, I get introduced to, and then I sort of start making my way around the room. But you seek out the person that nobody's talking to, and what do you do? Do you walk? What is the first thing you say when you walk up to them?
I guess it depends on the situation. Like, I'm thinking of one situation in particular where I walked up and she's sitting there. I was like, "Hi, I'm Michelle."
That's it.
I introduce myself always. "Hi, Michelle. I'm Michelle."
Has that ever gotten you in trouble?
I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm oblivious to it. I don't know. I mean, I don't think anybody.
Nothing ventured, nothing gained, right?
Yeah, nobody's ever gotten. Some of the we joke, and a lot of these women will know this story. A lot of women will know this story. But when you've been out with girlfriends and you've been drinking and you go to the restroom, because girls go to the restroom like in droves.
In gangs.
Yeah, in gangs. And you go to the restroom, and some of the best, funniest situations I've ever gone out have happened in the restroom, because you've got like all dynamics of women are in the restroom. You've got the younger ones that are crying. You've got the ones that in the restroom. I can't even tell you how many times I have, now this is pre-COVID, but how many times I have borrowed someone or someone has borrowed a lipstick, asked for some sort of personal thing.
This may be one of the reasons men are not good at this. Do you know the kind of conversations men have?
Do not make eye contact.
We don't make eye contact. We don't talk to each other.
Dude.
You could stand next to somebody you've known for a long time, wash your hands, and you won't talk until you walk out the door.
If I'm peeing in a hole in the wall, I'm probably, but I can tell you this. I have helped a girl that I didn't know hold her dress up so she could pee. So, I'm just telling you, there's just this whole thing about being female and camaraderie. And look, I just act like myself. I'm probably oblivious.
Crystal Horton said to us the other day, you always know where you stand with Michelle. But
yeah.
You have a very special talent for that. And when I see you putting that talent into use, I'm always amazed, and it's fun to watch.
Well, thank you. I'm a hugger too. That's the other thing.
Well, again, men, we're not allowed to just randomly walk up to women and go, hey, can I give you a hug? So,
one of the best stories I feel like I've ever had of a stranger encounter was right after 9/11. And this just brought me back. It was a very scary time. It was 9/11. It was actually 9/11. It was September 11th. And we went to HEB because people were panicking. They didn't know what was going on. And I was in line, and I had, my essentials, whatever we were, the end of the world was coming. And water and whatever. And this lady behind me, she was an older Hispanic lady, didn't say a word. We looked at each other, and we both started bawling and just started hugging each other. That it just goes to show you. I'm telling you, boy, that was a very scary time. But here you are in a line at a grocery store, perfect stranger.
Yeah.
So everybody needs a hug sometimes.
Yeah. Well, that's true. All this record heat we've been having. I just read a stat the other day. So we get a lot of our water in this area from Lake Travis and Lake Buchanan. And both of those lakes combined now are at 49% capacity. They have less than half of their capacity.
Time to buy some waterfront property.
Yeah, I know. But this article I read, they interviewed this guy, spokesman for LCRA, and he said, "Oh no, we're not in trouble, but we recommend some conservation." And I was like, "How can that not be in trouble? You got half the water that we normally have."
So last week, in our neighborhood, we went on. Aren't we on? You guys are on stage 5 or stage 4, right? Stage 4. But our water pressure was down to nothing, down to literally nothing. I was like, what's going on with this? And so I don't know. We may be on stage 4 also because we're on WTCPU, blah, blah, LMNOP. That's what we're on, a different water system than you guys are. But
well, it's getting scary. The LCRA, watering lawns is out right now. You can't water your lawn. I guess you could still water it by hand.
You can water it by hand. Yeah. I thought they raised it though. I thought you can do it only one day a week. And
I think that's true. Yeah. So LCRA they do supply some places like taps, like each individual house, but most of their businesses will send water to like Dripping Springs Water Corp buys from LCRA. So they've recommended that each of their suppliers that they provide water reduce their usage by 5% just to help get through this time. And then the other things they said were cover your pools, which makes sense because evaporation when it's 105 degrees is huge. Mulch your plants
we do that.
Deep, thick mulch. And if you're going to hand water before 7 a.m. or after 10 p.m.
I know. Well, I don't do that because I'm in bed or I'm not up yet.
Well, I think there's going to be a lot of dead lawns out there.
I know. And we spend so much, and there's some controversy about having green lawns and this, that, and the other. But look, I live in a neighborhood, and if my yard was dead, I'd be getting a notice from the Nazi HOAs.
And a fine. Yeah, well, don't use that word, but they
but it's true,
I'm having
right?
problems with one of mine right now, an HOA that I own a property in, and those guys, they have gone absolutely insane. What? I don't know.
They have too much power. I understand the whole concept of an HOA being able to not have cars parked on the lawn and not having a pig farm and, whatever else. But when you have one individual who is who
has
basically
nothing better to do but to go around and torment the homeowners because they left their garbage can out 30 minutes too long. Or in the case of this one, they're writing nasty letters to the owner because his truck is too long to fit in his short driveway and it sticks out 1.5 feet.
So what does he do? Does he now go?
He can't fit it in the garage and he can't fit it in the driveway.
So what does he do?
I guess he has to park way outside the neighbor or, park out in the shared parking, which is way far away from his house. But I agree with you. I think it's time for the legislature to look at some reining in some of these HOAs because these people, not all of them, there are some great HOAs out there, but some of these people are nuts. They're absolutely nuts.
Did they say, didn't Texas just pass something where it said that they can't?
No, that what they passed was you can't discriminate against a tenant based on their form of payment, which is you can't say no if part of your payment is some kind of government assistance, Section 8 or something, you can't say nah, I don't take those. If they can afford to pay the rent and they're qualified, you can't discriminate against them.
Oh, I thought the one I was thinking about was the foreclosure on lien, or like they can't put.
A few years ago, yeah, I think they can still lien your property, but there's a lot more hoops to jump through to foreclose on it because there was some instances where homeowners associations were foreclosing on people that had like $1,500 worth of fines, and the HOA was foreclosing on the property. That's ridiculous. Yeah.
Well, I mean, they spend more money on attorney's fees sending these letters out, right?
Well, there might be if they don't back down, they might be spending more money on attorney's fees, which is funny because in the situation, if you have a property in an HOA and you go hire an attorney and they sue the HOA, you're sort of suing yourself.
Yeah, I guess that's a good.
Still, at the end of the day, it's not usually about money. It's about, hey, just stop. We're using the property in the manner that it's designed for. The CCRs allow for this. Just back off. Just,
We were having issues in our neighborhood that after the freeze, they were telling everybody, okay, you've been given enough time to pick up your limbs, which is fine and dandy. Sure. Yes, absolutely. Clean your trees out, take your brush piles, but they weren't doing the same for themselves. Oh, well, we still have a ginormous brush pile across from our house.
That's funny because in the case I'm struggling with, the guy that's making everybody miserable about their lawns and that one guy has a screen with a cut in it, and then this HOA guy is losing his mind, has one of the worst looking houses in the neighborhood. The yard looks terrible, and there's anyway. But,
what do they say about glass houses?
Yeah, that's right. There's one other thing. We're not a real estate show, but this popped up on my desk this week. I had somebody ask me about rentals in Dripping Springs, and we don't do a lot of rentals, but I did a search. We could do that on our MLS, and I did a search for rentals in Dripping Springs, and during COVID, there were anywhere, depending on when you searched, sometimes there were as little as 4 or 5 rentals available in the entire Dripping Springs area, which is 78737, all the way out almost to Henley. And maybe sometimes there's as many as 10. You know how many rental properties there are available in Dripping Springs right now?
So the average is around,
I would say the average probably historically has been 15 to 20.
I would say probably right around 20, 25.
90.
Oh, I thought it was going to be lower.
No,
wow.
There are 90 houses available for rent in Dripping Springs right now.
Is it because we have a lot of the newer builds that people can't afford them, and so Could be that. Could be that people that, bought thinking they were going to sell them high, now maybe they owe money on it, or they're underwater, or they're they can't sell them for what they want for. So they go, we just had one of these this week. I'll put a tenant in there for a few years and wait till the price comes back. But some of these people are going to be sitting on these houses unrented for a long time. Well, and the mortgage rates the lease prices that they're wanting.
Well, they're coming down now. So you can rent a house now in Belterra, and it's been a while, for $2,400.
Wow.
Yeah. But so the absorption rate, which is the average of how many houses are leased per month, in 30 days, last month was 19. So, 19 into 90 is what, 4.5 or almost 5 months. So 5 months worth of lease inventory. I can't remember the last time we've had that. It's usually running, 30 to 45 days.
So question, can you negotiate a lease price?
You certainly can now.
Well, now.
You got 90 on the market. Yeah. I mean, and especially I looked at some of the days on the market, some of these days on the market, 90, 110.
Wow.
So that's a
Carrying
landlord
cost,
paying the taxes, the insurance, the mortgage, the upkeep, keeping the lawn nice, keeping the electricity on, all those things.
Well, if you want to,
no income.
If you want to sell it, why don't you give us a call? 512-627-7018.
Yeah, that's right. Well, let's take a little break and get Mark in here and see what he's got to say about Hill Country Ranch Pizzeria and all the things he's done. He's been here for a while. He's going to be, I think it's going to be really interesting.
I hope I have some goodies.
Yeah, me too.
This portion of the show is brought to you by the Mallett Integrity Team of real estate professionals. They are based in Dripping Springs and bring you over 45 years of combined experience helping people reach their hill country real estate dreams. When you want the best in town, call them at 512-829-2062 or look them up at mallettintegrityteam.com. And now, here's Steve and Michelle.
Welcome back, Mark Sewell. We have the owner of Hill Country Ranch Pizzeria, the Sweet Shop, and the Driftwood Bistro.
Welcome to the show, Mark.
Well, thank you very much for having me.
Yeah. How long have you been in Dripping Springs?
12 years.
12 years.
Yeah.
What brought you here the first time?
Well, I hate to say this for everyone to hear, but I was born and raised in California. And I had friends that I worked with that lived in Texas or were raised in Texas and were working out in California at the time. Came out and visited them and just really fell in love with Texas. And I knew after the first visit, Texas is where I was going.
Where you were heading.
Yeah, so that was kind of a foregone conclusion. But had joint custody of my son. And so, had to wait until he was 18. And so that one piece of the puzzle. Second piece was working in the restaurant industry. I think everyone that does it, at some point has hit their head on something and said, I should open my own. And so I kind of had that desire to go and open something, but California is far too expensive.
Yeah.
Where did you live in California?
I was born and raised in Chino.
Okay.
Yeah. Where's that? Is that
we're
southern?
famous for the big prison.
Oh,
you'll see in all the movies somebody did a nickel in Chino. That's that's kind of the line. But that's what we're famous for.
Every place is famous for something.
Where is that?
About 40 minutes due east of Los Angeles.
Okay.
Yeah,
it's hot out there. That's a bad place to spend in prison.
It's a bad place to be in prison.
Yeah. Bad place to be in prison.
I mean, if you're going to rate prisons, yeah.
I mean, I don't know if I'm in the prison rating business, but
How'd you get into the restaurant industry in the first place?
I like to say I was tricked into it, but my mom owned a bakery for probably about 9 years as I was growing up.
Okay.
And I worked a little bit for her. I tell people I decorated cakes and assembled wedding cakes, but for the most part, probably 90% of it was dishes.
Yeah.
And I was tricked once by one of those money changer guys that came in, so that's always one of my big memories of doing that.
Like tricked, like they said,
hey, can you break 100? And, by the time it was done, he had $400 of my mom's money. And,
like a con man kind of thing.
Con
like,
man, full on con man.
Yeah.
You weren't allowed on the cash register.
No, that put me back into the dishes. But she, doctors told her she had to sell it because of asthma, having too much flour and stuff in the air. So as she was shutting down, Little Caesar's Pizza was opening up in the parking lot across the parking lot. And she said, why don't you go over and apply? And so I kind of reluctantly went across the parking lot and put in my application, and they interviewed me and hired me. And then after a month of working for them, I was promoted to assistant manager.
How old were you?
16.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was a huge mistake on their part. And so as an assistant manager, I lasted about 5 months and remarkably didn't bring the business to its knees. But, it was kind of the getting a bite of what it was like. And then since then, this is my 34th year in the restaurant industry, and all of it except for that first month in management.
Wow. I want to ask you, is there anything about California that you really miss?
So California is a beautiful state.
Oh, it's
gorgeous.
gorgeous.
I mean, the beaches are nice. We had beach houses in Oceanside when I was growing up.
I lived in Oceanside
did
for
you?
a while. Yeah.
Yeah. And so we had 3 North Coast Village near Camp Pendleton, near the harbor. Beautiful place to go visit. And by and large, there's so many different parts of California. Where we lived in Chino, I told people, you can go anywhere in 45 minutes. You can be at the beach, you can be skiing in the mountains, you can be at Disneyland, you can be at any concert. Problem is, you can only get there at midnight in 45 minutes. Everywhere else it's 3 hours.
Isn't that the truth?
So, but the beauty of the state is there. Just unfortunately over time, the rest of it hasn't stayed beautiful. It's, there's a lot of traffic, there's a lot of people, there's a lot of...
Maybe not as many people now
Well,
because half the state has moved out.
I think it's still growing, which blows my mind. But I lived there 20 years ago.
Okay.
I moved here 20 years ago, and it was going downhill then. And when I left, I thought, well, the slide's only going to go for a few more years, but it's continued to go downhill.
Oh, they're
Yes.
doubling down, right? I mean,
On
there's
all the bad stuff. They just continue to, and I think all the worst homelessness situations are in California and San Francisco and San Diego and Los Angeles, and they're throwing literally billions with a B of dollars at it and not making any impact. But yeah, so I'm with you. Everybody would go, "What do you miss about California?" And I go, "The weather." And then there is really no number 2.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like,
well, probably even just starting a business in California, just all the regulations and the fees and just, something on top of something else. And so now you're here in Texas. How different is it having a business here in Texas
versus California.
So I had never owned in California. I just ran things for other people. But from a regulatory standpoint, it's different. From a taxation standpoint, it's significantly different.
Yeah.
But just in a cost of doing business standpoint, it's really prohibitive. And I think in the hospitality sector in particular, you already run on pretty thin margins. And so, especially in that startup phase, 90% of restaurants don't last the first 2 years, 95 at 5 years. And it's just an unfortunate fact of life. But if the majority of the reason restaurants fail is undercapitalization. And so unless you're sitting on a pile of money, to get to the point where you can try to be successful, and a lot of people say a restaurant's a great place to make $500,000 out of $1 million.
Yeah.
So
I hear that all the time. And actually, if you think about how many restaurants in Dripping Springs have come and gone.
Yeah.
So when did you open up Hill Country Ranch Pizzeria?
February of 2011.
Wow. So 12 years.
12 years.
In those 12 years, I mean, there's dozens of places that have come and gone, right?
There are.
Austin, Java, La Vachère. There's been like 3 or 4 places in where Pigpen is now.
Yep.
I mean, the list goes on. There's probably not one reason why all those fail, but why? They all seem pretty good. Why do you think they don't make it?
Well, I hate to second guess any. I mean, you're kind of looking into somebody else's crystal ball, trying to figure out. And unfortunately, I don't know most of the restaurateurs that have come and gone, but I think it kind of falls into 2 sections. One is the restaurant industry has a very romantic side to it. And a lot of people who didn't come up in the restaurant industry look at it and they think, well, man, when I retire, I would love to own a restaurant because it's a feel-good business. Sure. You see yourself as going out and shaking hands and kissing babies and hearing from people say, man, this food is so good and we really enjoy coming here. And, that side of it's kind of romantic, but it's really not a big portion of what you do as a restaurateur. Most of it's dirty and greasy and long hours and, it's all behind the scenes.
Paperwork.
Yeah.
Accounting,
I mean, there's a lot of it, when you put in HR, when you put in 40 or 50 hours a week, then you go home and put in 40 or 50 hours a week on the administrative side because you can't afford, an office manager and stuff like that. So I think half of the businesses that come in and probably don't make it. And again, I'm speculating it's not understanding exactly what it's about and not, if you're trying to supplant an income from one industry, or you're coming out of, if you're retiring, but you have a certain lifestyle and you're investing retirement money, you really don't make money for the first 2 to 5 years. And then after that, you're not making a lot. Most of the people that make a lot of money in restaurants either have a really big, awesome location and they just, Hay City Store, for example, I mean, they hit the gold mine there.
Sure.
The others own big chains. And so the other half of the restaurants that have come and gone, some that you've listed, are Austin chains who've come in. And I can't speculate what happens there, but it does seem like doing business in Austin as a regional chain there and then coming to Dripping Springs, that formula hasn't translated real well. And I don't know what it is. I would be lying if I said I was smart enough to know that.
Well, follow up on that. So you opened a location in North Austin. What year was that?
2012.
So a year after you opened this one.
Yeah.
So, and then how long was that one open before you shut it down? A year. So why did you shut that one down? At what point did you go, okay, I got to pull the plug on it?
Well, it was a huge learning experience, and it's one of those things I look back on. And for me personally, I'm glad it happened because it humbled me a little bit and kind of gave me some perspective. I feel really bad for the people that invested with us. You always kind of look back on it and you go, man, I felt good about it. And I promised people, we were going to, but we picked the wrong location by far. I mean, Parmer and Mopac and the HEB Center there with horrible, parking and horrible ability to get in and out of the parking lot. And we picked one of those locations. It's, notorious restaurant Black Hole. It's been, probably 400 different restaurants. And we came in and went, hey, we'll try it.
We'll do it.
Yeah. So, I mean, we made a bunch of mistakes. We weren't ready to expand at the time, but my business partner at the time and I this wasn't enough to keep us both busy. Definitely we weren't making money, in the first few years. And we thought, well, if we each had one to run, maybe it would be better. But we didn't know Austin well enough. So it's maybe a kind of the other side of the coin for the chains that are coming here. Yeah. We went there thinking we know Dripping Springs now, barely after a year, but going into Austin, especially up in North Austin, totally different demographics.
That's a different animal.
Altogether different. And so, I think unfortunately we probably knew a month or two in that unless something drastic changed, we weren't really going to make it. And we were getting by on the burgers, not the pizza. And then Pizzeria opened right next door to the center.
Oh, and that
wiped us out.
Yep,
that wiped us out. So, it is what it is. One of the big learning lessons for me from that, and just in general doing this, is my expectation moving from California to Texas and open up the restaurant was, we're going to create this business and make a big chain out of it. And, you get out your calculator and you start punching numbers and go, this is how much we're going to make once we have 7 restaurants. This is how much and then,
I'm going to be rich.
Yeah. And then you get here and you go, that's not what's going to happen
Here's
at all.
Reality.
Yeah, this isn't going to happen. So it made me change what my definition of success was going to look like for us. If we, because if you're going to continue to go, you got to have a target that's achievable, and the target we had wasn't. And so, that's why I say I'm glad we went through it. It was a good thing for me to have. But it was just a giant mistake.
That's an entrepreneur mindset, isn't it? Where there are failures, but you don't treat them as failures. You treat them as learning experiences so that as you grow, you do better, right?
That's true.
When you know more, you do better, right?
Yeah,
So
that's very true. And I do chalk it up as a failure just because you don't want to make that, do that again. I mean, sometimes you can get a little bit of hubris and go, well, that was a one and done. That's not going to happen again. But I mean, we failed miserably and it cost us a lot, put us back in time and energy and money. So, but you're right. I mean, if you're going to forge forward, you got to learn from it, and you got to make something good out of it. And that's what we've tried to do.
I like what you said in your bio, that you learned a lot of lessons. That's why I asked you about it.
Dripping is a very community centric town, and we kind of all rally behind people that give back. So how do you give back to the community?
Sure. So part of our commitment is that we really want to support children through either sports or schools. We want to support churches. We want to support animals, pets, that kind of thing.
Podcast host.
Podcast host for sure. For sure.
And he did. He brought us some yummy treats. We'll talk about it in a little bit.
But I also believe that, giving back is an obligation. It's a responsibility. And so the community of Dripping Springs, whether they consciously or unconsciously know what, they've rallied behind us. They've kept us open for 12 years. There's been lots of ups and downs.
Well, COVID, for instance,
heck. Just growth in general. When we opened, it was, the stated population was 2,800 people.
And you rented in what then was probably the highest rent spot in Dripping Springs. Wasn't it?
The rent I paid there was more than what I paid for Mopac and Parmer.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
You opened, was that the same year that HEB opened?
HEB
you were
opened 6 months before us.
You were the only spot there?
No. I think we were the second to last to go in. So
no. I mean, were you have you only been in that spot that you're in right now?
Every business in that strip is the original business that went in.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah. I mean, there's something to be said for having an HEB as an anchor for sure.
Yeah.
Which is odd that they're not doing it. The one they put at the Y and the one they just put at Nutty Brown.
I did notice that.
Strip center. Yeah.
Yeah. Really strange. Because I called them and I said, hey, we'd like to put one in at Nutty Brown. Let's bookend Dripping Springs. And they said, well, we're not doing retail strips right now.
Well, they're doing something across the street. I don't know what that is, kind of across behind the PEC.
I'm sure that's another developer that's doing that, just piggybacking on the traffic that's going to come there.
For sure.
Mark, I have a question because throughout high school, college, I waited tables. And I feel like it is everybody's civil service duty. You have to wait tables. You have to be in the service industry. And I learned so much about waiting tables. Kind of every table is their own personality. They have their own story, and you kind of have to be a chameleon to each person. But why do you think? Is it COVID? Is it generational? What is it? But why has the service in the service industry declined so much? I feel like whether I'm going out to a fancier restaurant or I'm ordering a burger at Whataburger, that I'm getting attitude and people just don't give a crap anymore. Yeah. So, I mean... And
they still want a 20% tip.
Yes.
Why do you think that is?
Why do you think that is? What do you think the psychology behind that is?
Well, so, I mean, like everything, there's not a, one-line answer to that. Yeah. There's a lot of facets that work into that. But I can tell you there's a number of big factors to it. Number one is, as a business, and it's not just the restaurant industry, but I'll just speak in generalities about the restaurant industry. In restaurants, we've lost leverage over, how we can motivate and incentivize our employees. The employees know we're all understaffed. I mean, you can go anywhere and see a now hiring sign or a banner or a post on the website or whatever. And employees know. I mean, they know based on how you beg them to work on schedules or negotiate with them to open up their availability or whatever. They know that they are in the driver's seat to some extent when it comes to we need them more than they need us.
Uh-huh.
And when you lose that leverage, it used to be 20, 30 years ago, I'd have 7 to 10 applications a day come through the door. And this was in California, in big cities, Pasadena, West Covina, Mission Viejo. I mean, larger population centers, but 7 to 10 applications a day was not unheard of. And you could sustain that over and over and over and over. So, and I don't, it sounds a little bit like, you could lord it over people, but when you have options and people, you tell people, I need you to perform at a certain level and I want you to greet a table with a smile and I want you to, be enthusiastic about serving the people. And I want you to understand that, those 4 tables are your little business and they're going to compensate you based on how well you run your little business. And I'm here to teach you how to do that. But, you can kind of build these mantras with your employees and get them to buy into it. But you also have the ability to say, I'm observing what you're doing and I'm coaching what you're doing and you're not responding to it. So, if you fail to respond to coaching, you're telling me you don't want to do this. And now I have, a treasure chest of people wanting to come in and work here. So
that's the way
you've got leverage.
That's not the
20,
way it is
20
now.
years ago. So these days, if I see 7 applications in a month,
really?
oh, that's a good month for us. Yeah.
Wow.
And, and it always surprises me when new restaurants come in and they want to open up and they're able to get traffic to come in and apply enough to get open. But when I talk to them, they always, we're severely understaffed.
Is this
what we want.
a Dripping Springs problem,
No.
or is this a
No, this is a national problem.
It's national.
Yeah.
Where are all these people? Why aren't they working?
If you could figure that out,
I don't understand.
you could write a book and retire. I can tell you that. I mean, I don't know. There's a lot of speculation. I think during COVID, people kind of went from living in their own apartments to kind of pairing up or tripling up into apartments. So their cost of living goes down a little bit. They developed a lot of side hustle kind of business. And so they like that little taste of working for themselves. I think in the long run, we're going to end up with a lot of people who don't have, they lived okay for a number of years, but when as you get older and you start thinking about retirement, and you start thinking about what's the next step in my life, that particular lifestyle is short-sighted. And so,
well, you need insurance, you need retirement, you need, there's a lot of things that you need. I remember we had a guest on, it was Micah Scott, and he said, I came to that point in my life where it was like, oh, I need to get a big boy job.
Yeah.
I need insurance.
Do you remember
need benefits.
the van life trend that started with COVID? That was like, oh, I'm just going to throw everything out the window. I'm going to go live in a van.
Yeah.
That's sort of the epitome of that.
Yeah. I mean, and aside from the staffing issue, there's kind of I think a generational mindset, but it's happened over, again, the last 20 years, where we've told kids growing up that, it really doesn't matter how well you do as long as you participate. And
tell my kids that
it's that participation trophy thing. And I think it's cliche to say, but unfortunately, I also think a lot of cliches are there because they're true. But if you can absolutely tell when you coach employees that feedback is triggering for them, they get anxiety, all the buzzwords come out, and all you're trying to do is improve them so that they can succeed. They look at it as being very threatening and
pressure.
It's pressure and it's unnecessary.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot psychologically and emotionally going on there that I'm not qualified to.
Have you heard of the new term time blindness? I think it's what it's called. Yeah. It's ridiculous.
What is that?
It's like, okay, so 20-something-year-olds, they're saying that they have no concept of time, therefore they shouldn't be held accountable. So they can't. 15
minutes seems like 8 hours to me, so I should only work 15 minutes a day.
They have
is that right?
Yeah, they have no concept on how long it takes to get to work. They don't take into account, it's a school just started, maybe I should allow for extra time, or they don't. It's a ridiculous concept. I'm sorry. It's made up, and some psychologists I was reading, they were saying it's like could be geared towards the ADHD crowd, that maybe they're, I don't know. It's
the three of us are all in an entrepreneurial business, and it's a fact. If we don't do our jobs well and we don't work hard, we don't make any money.
That's right.
If we just show up just to hold a place somewhere, then we'll be poor, right? And so you show up to a job, you don't do it well, you still get a paycheck. That's terrible. These people got to have a different attitude. It'll change. The pendulum will swing back.
It'll change. Maybe with the economy, having more troubles, it does create that necessity to go out and maybe do more.
And urgency, or the fact that there's now aliens. So maybe the aliens will like pizza and hamburger.
Yeah.
Well, they may also dilute the the labor market
There
too
you
to make
go.
it work.
Right, yeah.
So you watch South Park, you saw what happened when the aliens came.
So, Mark, tell the locations you have now. You got Hill Country Ranch Pizzeria. You got the Hill Country Ranch Sweet Shop.
Right.
And then you have some food trucks. What else do you have? Is that everything?
The Driftwood Bistro.
The Driftwood
Oh, the
Bistro.
Driftwood-
And they're
yeah.
all three different types of genres, food. And how do you manage all of that? How do you keep all track of them?
Well, managing them and keeping track of them may be two different things.
Yeah.
So we things have kind of progressed organically. It wasn't necessarily an overarching strategy for us. So we opened up the pizzeria, and then we opened up the second restaurant, which we've talked about, and that didn't work. And then I had a switch in business partners. So my original business partner who worked with me out in California is who helped me open this up out here. And after 5 years, he decided he wanted to go pursue being a pastor. So another friend of mine who I met here in Texas bought him out. And so for the last 7 years, the two of us have been kind of operating, and he doesn't have a restaurant background. He owns body shops. And but he's a very smart business person, and he's very familiar with this area of Texas. He lived in Dripping Springs for a while and all over. But Gary, who owns Driftwood Winery, came to us and said, I'm really interested in putting a restaurant on the property. Could you guys help us out? And so after some negotiation and back and forth, we decided that it'd be a good opportunity to do it. So we did put the Driftwood Bistro out there, and it was originally a proof of concept idea to maybe expand it into a real brick and mortar business. But the brick and mortar side of it, I think, is just going to end up being far too expensive for kind of what the situation is out there. But we do full service tableside dining out there. Most of it's outdoor. But to augment what he's doing, he's got a beautiful piece of property. I don't know if you've ever been out there. It's gorgeous. It's beautiful. And he has really good wines. I don't want to disparage other wineries, but his catalog of wines is probably one of the best catalogs of wines. There are wineries out there that have a very good wine, but maybe the rest of the catalog, his catalog's great. And you may find a couple you don't care for as much, but they win awards. He's very consistent. He's got a great winemaker. It's got a beautiful location. Yeah. He just needed a reason for people to stay longer or come up more often. So
there was a time like during COVID too, you had to have food in order to be able to serve alcohol.
I
That alone
forgot about that.
That was a huge boon to both our business as a restaurant and his business as a winery. We were able to maximize that opportunity there. But the menu we built was really to accompany wine. And so rather than do what we were doing here at the pizzeria, we put a menu out there that has open-faced stuffed avocado, which is something that when my wife and I went to Chile, we had something similar to it and built one like it. We have a ribeye quesadilla. We've got calamari. We have charcuterie boards. We have caprese salads and just a smattering of things. A little more global. We have some chilled Thai noodles. So a lot of different flavors, a lot of global interpretations of things that have some of a hill country spin on them, but definitely things that go well with wine.
That sounds like a lighter menu, which would be good with wine.
Yeah, and you're outdoors, and majority of the time you're there, it's warmer, so you really don't want a big steak and mashed potatoes.
Right.
We do some fancier dinners at night, by reservation only, and we'll do that. But if you're going to go out at 2:00 in the afternoon and have some wine and sit under an oak tree, you really want something that's going to accompany that and just make you feel good. And so the whole idea is go out, sit for 2 hours, let the world kind of melt away behind you.
Ooh, let's go do that, Michelle.
Let's go right now.
Let's go do that right now.
We're going to go right now.
So, Mark, what do you love about owning and running a restaurant, and what do you hate about it?
Well, the thing I love, there's a lot of things I love about it. One thing is when I'm in the restaurant working, I'm never unhappy. I mean, that's just one thing that's
pretty cool.
You've got to do it for a while, and then it just kind of hits you in the forehead one day that, geez, I'm actually really happy when I'm in here. And when I'm not in running a restaurant or any of the 3 locations, depending on what I'm doing, I can kind of measure, am I as happy right now as I would be if I were in there doing it? I like the hustle and bustle of it. The pace is great. I've always enjoyed working with younger people, which is the majority of what you have as an employees.
So you kind of become the dad or the uncle to kind of
you do,
the drama.
You know, mentor.
There's a lot of mentorship that goes with it. There's a lot of I mean, there are instances where you kind of take on the surrogate dad role, but I think the majority of it is they help keep you young and you help grow them into adults. I mean, there's a very symbiotic relationship there, and I love that.
I look back to when I was waiting tables in Corpus. Brad Lomax, he was the owner of Water Street Oyster Bar, all the Water Streets down there. And when you said that, it made me think about Brad, because Brad really made an impact on my life. And I think that kind of transcends to the kind of adult I am now. Because I was, believe it or not, I was a little shy, but
no. That's the biggest BS statement you've made.
I was a little shy. I was a little
not
shy.
buying it, Michelle. Not buying it.
I was an introverted extrovert.
Not buying it.
Yes.
Extrovert.
Yeah. So Brad really kind of helped me, but he helped me kind of approach that level. Like I remember you were saying something about going to the table and it's your business. He said something very similar to that, where they don't care that you have other tables. They don't care that you have food coming out. They only care about them. They only care about their issues. And you never leave a station without having something in your hand. You never walk out of a station without having
full hands
something.
in, full hands out.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's where I got the time enough to time enough to lean, time enough to clean?
Oh, yeah.
Where I got that from.
Those are all standard restaurant terms.
That's right. So and then what was it, the other one? 86? Like, that's 86. You're out of something.
You're out of something.
But so the other side of it, what's the yucky side?
So, I mean, it is frustrating just to try to always, you have an expectation that I'm growing my business. And I think all of us look at business growth as, kind of a steady march forward, but it's not just restaurants, it's everywhere. But, growth is cyclical, and you have valleys and troughs and hills and mountains. And so, sometimes you climb up a mountain and you're like, man, this is great. I'll give you an example with the sweet shop. We opened the sweet shop last July, so we're a year this month.
Oh, wow. Boy, that went by fast.
That went by fast, yeah. And so we gave ourselves 2 years to break even, and we hit the break even a little more than 2 months before school let out. So we were, maybe 7, 8 months in, we were breaking even. And I'm just thinking, man, this is fantastic.
Yeah.
We kind of cracked the code. And then, in your mind, you're thinking, okay, school's going to let out, so I'll probably have a little dip, and you're doing the math in your head and you're trying to figure out how much do the kids contribute. And then school let out, and it plummeted. So the summer's been really, really hard on us over there. But so in your mind, you've got to reconcile how well were we doing. And if we continue to do what we do well, this is a blip. We need a different strategy for next summer. We need to, continue to grow our brand. There's a lot of things that we can do to counter that for next year, but that drop, it's really hard on you. On me, emotionally and psychologically, just to stay positive. And then your staff looks at it and they start to panic, like, what's going to happen?
You're going to close the place? Am I out of a job?
None of that's happening. We're in good shape. It's,
well, you just pivot, you're pivot. Like, okay, so I'm in the summer. So now do we do iced coffee? Do we do this?
Yeah.
How are we going to?
Yeah. You just got to come up with different strategies, but it's hard. It's hard to do that. And, and when things are going well, and then you have your natural dips, everyone that's involved, you got to keep everyone focused. And as you grow, we've approached things a little differently. I have 7 managers that work for me, where a lot of mom and pop shops, it's the owner, operator, and then they maybe have 1 or 2 trusted key carriers. So where they, the owners can make quite a bit of money if they're doing well, we've spread all that out to, 7 different families and they all support themselves that way. So we don't make a lot, but our goal is to continue to grow. But when they look at it and it's their livelihoods, and they see more of the numbers and they see more of the, how everything kind of works together, there's that that sense of the unknown. They haven't driven through this before.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of a tumultuous for them. And yeah.
I want to talk about or ask you a question about kind of the monster of the restaurant business. And it's different than when I was in the restaurant business, but the Yelps, the social media, the one bad experience that someone has
one
had.
bad review. That's super vocal.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Well, you're not going to like my answer, but my answer is I don't look at it. I haven't.
I do like that.
Yeah.
I haven't looked at Yelp since 2012. So I have no idea what people have posted about me. I don't know what our rating is.
Well, as a matter of fact, I'm just
and quite frankly, and quite frankly, I don't care.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to kind of approach it one way or the other, right? So I do have a theory that if you're really, really good at social media, then you're probably, well poised to run any kind of business right now because you can reach a lot of people that way. But I also think that if that's your strength, it's also going to be your weakness, and that's true of so many things. So I look at restaurants that have opened up all over Austin, and when they're the big flash in the pan, no one can stop talking about them. They're everywhere. It's very short-lived,
sure.
And they may still exist. A lot of them don't, but that crowd that follows social media and Yelp and everything else, they're very transient, and they're chasing something for them, right? So they want to be seen at the hottest spot. They want to be known that they're eating there. They want to take pictures of the food.
There's always a new hot spot.
And there's always something new, right? New. And so that's kind of...
That's my kids' generation.
Yeah.
They take pictures of everything they eat. Like I make fun of my daughter-in-law. It's like, do you ever take pictures of people or is it just food?
Well, everything they experience, they have to share because part of that experience is other people feeling either good for them or jealous of them. Right. And I think it's a very unfortunate factor of what's happening in our society right now. But for me and for our businesses, reluctantly, we do some social media to tell people what we're doing. I am horrible at it. And so, I just hired a girl to help me with it, but I gave her very stringent parameters, and she's not real excited. I don't think about being, a late teenager and having to work in a 50-year-old's mind. But I don't look at it. And quite frankly, when people, the review part of it, if someone doesn't like what we're doing, it's going to be reflective in our traffic and our sales. And our traffic and our sales have grown every year. We've never had a negative year, even with COVID.
Really?
Yeah. No, we actually came out of COVID in really, really good shape.
Wow. Man,
we had a business model that
Mark.
had delivery, takeout, outdoor seating, and I refused to close. I mean, I think we were shut down 3 days total.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, good for you.
And so, when everyone else panicked, we just said, we're going to march forward.
Did you get any flack on that from customers or government? Did anybody?
Government, no.
So nobody from the city, nobody from the state said, okay.
Nobody. But, we had some customers that would come in and, they scold you a little bit for even putting the public at risk. Yet they're out yelling at you. Sure,
yeah.
So they're doing the same thing, right? And, they were wearing those masks in the kitchen. It was suffocating. And so
I can't even imagine.
If my employees were 6 feet apart, I told them, take the masks off. You don't have to do it. And some customers would come in and they'd be irate. And I'd tell them, you know what? I'm happy to refund your money and you can leave. And, when you feel comfortable coming back in, please do.
Yeah.
But, I've got to juggle the welfare of my employees and the welfare of my customers and the welfare of my business. And this is how we've chosen to do it. And
we live in a world now where you cannot please everybody.
Well, you can't.
You just can't. It's not physically possible.
And coming back to the Yelp thing on that is people, it used to be 20, 30 years ago, if someone had, they were upset about something, they were eager to get in your face and yell at you in front of the other customers and stuff. And so you were trained, take the person aside, get them away from the customers. Well, nowadays, no one will even talk to you, right? So, hey, how's everything going? I'd like to, come by the table. Oh, everything's great. Thank you very much. And then night, the bad review goes up, and I would get offended, and I would write back and say, hey, my name's Mark. Here's my personal cell phone number. I'm the owner.
They don't want to talk to you though.
No,
Mark. They want to be a keyboard warrior.
1 in 100 maybe would call or
That's
email back,
unfortunate.
but you'd see them back in the restaurant a week later. And so at that point, I just said, why am I going to make myself miserable chasing down other people's unhappiness?
And you're not going to change their mind, and they're not going to back down.
And they're really not as unhappy as they think they are, and they like our food and they like our service, and they're going to, most of them will come back. And
I love the fact that you guys are one of the only places in Dripping Springs that have like a lunch menu, like a lunch special. Like, at lunch, you don't want this big old ginormous meal, and I don't want to spend $15, $20 for a lunch. I want to be able to have, a little salad. It reminds me of the days like back when I was a kid and we'd go to Mr. Getty or Pizza Hut, and you'd go get this like, deep dish pizza, and you'd have the
pizza.
salad. And it's like when they opened up, Todd and I were like, yes, pizza and salad again.
Yeah. So Mark, you've won the best burger in Dripping Springs a number of years, right?
Yeah, we did. We've won best burger in Dripping Springs 4 years in a row, and then I think one other time outside of that 4-year stretch.
What is so special about your burger?
Well, I don't want to give away trade secrets, obviously, right?
Just give us a hint.
I think the key to a burger isn't any one ingredient; it's how you combine it. And so, I can liken it to going to other places and trying their burgers because we do it a lot, and they may tout, we've got this great, jalapeno bun, and that's kind of what they've picked to be the star, but the ratio of bun to meat is off because they focused on the bun.
Sure.
Or, we use certified Angus beef that we make, we grind here and hand patty it ourselves, but they don't season it. And, so there's all kinds of bells and whistles you can throw into a menu that says, this is why we have the best burger. We don't do anything particularly outlandish. We use really good ingredients, but we use a lot of seasoning, and everything that we do to build the burger is designed for an end result, not just for one part of it to be something
So it
unique.
looks good, tastes good, smells good. Yeah, all those things.
Yeah.
What's your most favorite or popular menu item across all three?
Oh
restaurants?
gosh, I mean that's nearly impossible to answer. The most popular at the pizza restaurant is either just a cheeseburger, or we've got a lock, stock, and barrel pizza, which is our 5 meat pizza, or the that's the meat locker, or the lock, stock, and barrel, which is 8 toppings and it's 3 meats, 5 vegetables. It's kind of the supreme. Those are the big ones. The big surprise was the 3 Little Pigs pizza, which is a white sauce. And we use a different kind of white sauce in most places that makes it far superior than what you get most places. But then we put ham, pulled pork, and bacon on it, and then drizzle honey on it after it comes out of the oven. And that one is...
I didn't have breakfast.
It's sweet and savory and salty, and
that sounds good.
I mean, it's a good pizza. But that one we put on the menu maybe a year and a half after we opened, maybe 2 years after we opened, and it was kind of we were bored in the kitchen playing around, and we put it on there. But that thing has,
That's cool. That's got to
following.
be fun to sort of have a day where you're like, hey, let's come up with something new for the menu. That's got to be fun.
It is fun, and I think in restaurants, when you have chef owners, their emphasis because of their background is on the food, and so they change things all the time because that's what really appeals to them. And I would love to do that. I'm not a chef by any stretch of the imagination, but I love cooking and I like making new menu items.
That makes you a chef.
What's that?
That makes you a chef.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
You're a chef
Well,
now.
I don't have a bad attitude or tattoos, so I don't think I qualify.
You don't smoke
Do you
a
have
pack
the
of
funny
cigarettes.
hat though with the little thing on it?
Oh,
That
those
makes you
things
a
are
chef.
so uncomfortable. But when you change the menu all the time, your customers, you're there all the time, so you're looking at the food constantly. Your customers may only eat there once every 2 weeks or once a month, and so when you change it all the time, they come back for something they had the last time that they loved. So we do change the menu a lot, but I have probably 80% of the menu's been on there since we opened.
See, I think that is a mistake that a lot of the places in town have made. They come up with a good menu and everybody likes it and they stick with it for years and years and years. And even though I'm one of those ones that likes to come in and I have my go-to, every once in a while I want to try something different. And if there's nothing else new, shut up.
When do you try something different?
I try something different. Pigpen. I was going into Pigpen and I was getting a turkey sandwich. And then one day I said, I'll try those chicken fajitas. And now that's my go-to.
No, I just stick with the chicken fajitas.
Yeah. So your mom, who is 76, works at the sweet shop. Is she still working there?
She is. She comes in one day a week. So I moved her from California to Texas in January of last year. And
how's she like this heat?
Well, where we live in Chino, 112,
Yeah.
113 is not
different.
uncommon, just not the humidity.
It's a dry heat.
It's a dry heat. That's what everyone says. So we moved her out here, and my concern was at home, she ran her church. She played the organ for her church from the time she was 16 until we literally drove her off to Texas. She played that day that we drove off. So, for 60 years, she played organ. She ran the church. She was very involved. She ran 3 different choirs. And coming here, she had made a decision that she wanted to cut back on some of that. But I was concerned, when you cut back, sometimes your body and your mind just kind of says, well, I guess this is it. Yeah. And I didn't want that to happen. So I told her, you can come in every day or as often as you want to, putz around, do whatever you want to do, but I wanted to have some purpose for her. Oh. And so she's decided that she likes to come in one day a week, and she makes Carmelitas.
Did you bring us a
I
Carmelita?
did. Yeah,
I want to know because I don't know what that is.
So the Carmelita is kind of an oat brownie.
Ooh, and that sounds good.
Out of all the things we sell, it looks least sexy out of everything we sell, but when she owned her bakery, this was the #1 seller for the whole time she was open. So it's 2 layers of kind of oats, butter, brown sugar, and then in the center you've got caramel, chocolate, and walnuts.
I think I know what I'm having for breakfast now.
Yeah, I know.
It is good. They're very, very good. And if you put them in the microwave for about 8 seconds, they're nice and gooey.
That is really good.
It's a good dessert. So she comes in and she's the only one that makes that particular dessert. It's hers, and then she'll look around and kind of, say, oh, I like what you guys are doing here, and I don't like what you're doing here. And she's very opinionated. So,
well, she knew what she was doing.
She did. Yeah. And it's good for me to have her come in. And one, it's nice just to spend some more time with her. For 12 years, we didn't see each other very much. And 2, I think it's just good to have her opinion. She's got a very different, what you do in bakeries today is not what you did in bakeries in the 80s. And I think there's still a lot of value in what we used to do. Mm-hmm. But it's so easy to not remember, what that is.
She's passing on lessons she's learned from her time in the bakery business that could be lost if she wasn't there passing on those
for sure.
How are you possibly managing all of this? Like, what are you doing in your free time? Do you have free time? Do you spend any time at home? Do you sleep at the restaurant?
Yeah, people
you actually look pretty fresh for a guy that's doing all these things.
People ask me, why did you open a bakery? I said, well, I had nothing to do between 4 and 8 in the morning. So no, I've got good people. I have really, really good people. I wouldn't be where I was now if it wasn't for my wife. My wife has been the backbone of everything that we do. She's supported me financially for most of this. I didn't pay myself for the first 7 years.
Oof, wow.
But, by design, I'm trying to build a business that has some legs. And, in the restaurant industry, there's not a lot of retirement. They don't do a lot for you. There's some 401ks and stuff, but I actually, pulled mine out to open the restaurant. So she's got a great job. Everything that I say to her, I go, hey, what do you think about me doing this? All right, let's give it a try. So she's very supportive. And so, if this was how we were making our living, I think it would be a lot different. I'd look more tired for sure. But she does support everything that I do, and she's great. I just love her to death. But on top of that, you find good people and you train them. Yeah. And so, I've got really good people working for me. There's just nothing that you can do to supplant how good, someone helping you is when they're good.
It sounds like you also enjoy what you're doing too.
I do.
I'm picking up on that.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, it's not a grind for you. You're involved in it every day because you're having fun.
Yeah, and there are again, another cliche, you find something you love and you never work a day in your life.
Never work a day in your life.
I don't know if that's necessarily true. There's days where I come home, I go, man, did I work today? But for the most part, I mean, I love what I do, and I love the people I have working for me, and working with customers and working with the community and that kind of thing.
It's a great community.
It's a great community.
If you had, I was going to ask one quick question about dripping. If you had to do it all over again, you would end up right back here in Dripping Springs? Yeah,
I think so. I mean, we shuffled back and forth. We were looking in Kyle, where Casa Garcia's is in the HEB Center, and here. And we went back and forth on which one we would do.
I think you chose wisely, my friend.
I think we did. I mean, I think we would have been much busier, much faster there, but I don't think we would have had anywhere near the personal success. This community, there's something special about Dripping Springs. We've got a lot of really great long-term customers. We've got a lot of great partners. You'd asked earlier about giving back. We do that. We do it quietly. I don't believe that you're supposed to, say, hey, come shop with me because I give to these people. But we give to a lot of people in the background. And every time you do it, it's 3-4-fold back.
Yeah.
And it's not expected, but it's appreciated. Yeah. And it's just, I don't know if that would have happened in the other location, so you can only speculate. But if I had to do it all over again, for sure.
I think Dripping Springs is a much tighter community than Kyle and Buda, for sure.
Yeah.
We're almost out of time, but I had one last question. Yeah. You put on your bio that you have a black-mouth cur.
Yeah.
I don't even know what that is, Mark. What is a black-mouth cur?
Black-mouth cur is a hunting dog.
Oh, it's a dog. I didn't know if it was a dog or a cat.
It sounds like a snake.
Or a rabbit.
It's a hunting dog. Mine has a little golden, or a little German Shepherd in with it.
Okay.
But she's great. She's coming up on 7 years, I think, now. And we got her when she was about 6 weeks old. Somebody had chained her to the gate of the animal shelter in Gonzales.
Oh.
And they don't know if it was Friday night or Sunday morning or whatever, but when people showed up there Monday morning, she was chained to the gate.
Oh.
And people are crazy. But we have friends that are animal rescue. So, when these places have pets like that, they go out and say, hey, who has availability? Our friend took her, and that's the black-mouthed cur right there. And that literally looks like my dog. Oh. I'll show you a picture when we're done here, but that picture looks just like Brownie. Yeah. And but they are.
Oh, dog's name is Brownie.
Brownie.
Yeah. I had a cat that was called Black Cat. I had a dog that was called Canine. So this is This is Brownie. So.
I want you to tell people also. You brought us in some goodies.
Yes.
Right. You brought us in your mama's
Carmelita.
Yep. And
that's a Buckeye bar. So it's a brownie on the bottom, a peanut butter filling, and then a chocolate ganache.
Gotta take that home to Holly.
Wow. And
it's a lemon bar.
Lemon bar. And then, of course, you told me we have some cupcakes.
Is that a regular
and then
brownie?
there's a fudge brownie there.
Okay, that one's mine. Don't you touch it.
No, I'm not touching the peanut butter. I'm touching some of that.
Okay.
Yeah. And then I brought 3 different cupcakes. So we got a vanilla, a Boston cream, and a red velvet.
Okay, there you can have this, and I'll have that. But you came in and you told me that. Tell me what you're doing with the cookies now.
So we've always done sugar cookies. I think we've got a really terrific product in our sugar cookie. I think they're delicious. But for me, you asked me what one of my favorite items is out of everything at the sweet shop, and I would have never guessed this, but the sugar cookie is by far my favorite.
Interesting.
You can have it with coffee, and it's really, really good with a cup of coffee. But it's just it has nice texture to it. It's got a delightful, subtle flavor. They're just good. I love them. So because of that, we decided, and because, when the summer turned a little bit on us, I thought, well, what do we do well, and what can we leverage? So we came up with the ability to put anybody's logo or faces or anything onto a sugar cookie.
That's cool.
And so
I'm going to put your face on a cookie.
Yeah. So you can order these from us.
That's really cool.
And we can put any image on there as long as it's not something that you don't have the license trademark to.
Okay.
Right. So, we couldn't print Mickey Mouse on there, but if you have the license trademark to, the real estate agency,
Mallett and Michelle on
to the podcast
in our future.
Yeah. And so you can either give them away, as like I thought for real estate, if you do an open house or if you as a closing gift on a house,
That's a great idea. Mark.
you can put, sweet, you've closed, something like that on there. But also if you want to, we've got distilleries and wineries and breweries and boutique shops. They can put their logos on it, put it by the register.
And you're local, and you're right
That
down the
is
street.
really smart. Yeah. And I'll bet you, hopefully everybody listening that has a business will reach out to you. That'll get you through your bump.
Yeah, that's right.
Dip next year. Well, Mark, this was really fun.
Well, thank you. I enjoyed it.
I can't believe you've been here in business this long. I have seen you around town,
That's
but I
right.
never actually had a chance to meet you. It was really fun.
Well, thank you. I enjoyed it.
In.
Nice to meet you both. And it is one of those things that, because at 3 businesses, I tell my pastor all the time, I'm really, really good at the bump and run. Come, hey, how are you? Good to see you. Thanks for coming in. But you don't get a lot of opportunities to sit and talk.
Yeah.
And so this was nice. I appreciate it.
It was fun. Well, thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
This show has been brought to you in part by the real estate pros at the Mallett Integrity Team. When you're looking to buy or sell, you need them on your side. Why settle for less when you can have real estate done right? Give them a call at 512-829-2062 or get more info at mallettintegrityteam.com.
You know you like us, so go now to Apple Podcast or Spotify and leave us a review. Why don't you? We love your feedback and comments. Email us at mallettandmichelle@gmail.com.
Thanks for putting up with us.